You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Inside the Fox 59 CBS 4 podcast studio, welcome to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. Alongside Mike Chappell and Matt Adams, I'm Dave Griffiths. Glad to have you along. We'll dissect the Colts' loss to the Browns this week. A narrow, nail-biting, thrilling in many ways, but ultimately disappointing for Colts fans. 1 point loss to the Browns, 39-38. Oh, Jim Irsay is sharing his thoughts on the game, on the end of the game, and might make him a little lighter in the pocketbook.
It's okay to share your thoughts on the game.
It is. Well, yes. This is on a certain aspect of the game that might cost him a few shekels at the end of the day. Anthony Richardson's surgery is complete. The Colts host the Saints on Sunday. All those things, plenty more. We're going to dive right on in, starting with last week's game against the Browns, which came down to the final drive. And guys, if we go back to our podcast last week and our predictions, could not have been more inaccurate.
Oh, man.
That's why they play the game.
That's right.
Like, after the first quarter, it was like 14-7 already. And
well, forget that. When you're expecting an under game,
right?
And like the third play, the guy goes, was it 69 yards?
It was, yes.
Or whatever it was.
69 yards.
69
and
yards.
then the next series, the Colts go whatever 59 yards on the bust or on the free play.
Right.
You know it's going to not be the under day.
No. Not even close. All the over-bettors were celebrating after 5 minutes of this game. And ultimately a 39-38 finish, an offensive onslaught, we will say. The defense for the Colts seemed like it was going to put off at the end after being very much a sieve for part of the game. Looked like they were going to put the clamps down, even on that last drive, as the Browns went 80 yards right down the field. Looked like they put the clamps down.
P.J. Walker took him 80 yards.
Yeah, when it mattered, because he kept throwing to Amari Cooper, who was being guarded by Darrell Baker Jr., who is playing because every other Colts cornerback seems to be injured right now.
Key play of the game is when Juju went out with the quad.
It might be.
I think so.
The most important play of this game. Mm-hmm. And then on a first down or first and goal inside the 10, the Colts blitz E.J. Speed, knocks the ball, right out of the hand of P.J. Walker. Colts recover. You think right then, game's over. Colts have the ball. They can run out the clock, but there's some laundry on the field with a flag called for Darrell Baker Jr. called for a illegal contact penalty in the end zone and gave them second life. And then, again, a penalty on Darrell Baker Jr. For pass interference in the back of the end zone.
The very next
snap. And the ball looked like it was almost thrown into the second row of the rafters, to be fair to Baker. But nevertheless, those two penalties right there and maybe some more calls near the end of that game were somewhat questionable. But nevertheless, Chap, this was a game that the Colts were just not able to keep up at the end, and it goes down as a loss in the win-loss column, regardless of calls, of plays made, not played, of points scored, not scored. Like that's the thing that matters most at the end of the day, and it's the thing that lingers longest throughout the week.
I understand the angst, the anger. I do, and we'll get to the officiating thing at the end. But still, you're up 5 with 2.5 minutes to play. Cleveland gets the ball at their own 20.
With their backup quarterback.
And they need
Walker,
a touchdown. They just don't need a 60-yard field goal.
They had one timeout, I think, right?
I think so,
like
right.
And 2-minute warning. They had one timeout
so,
with 2-minute warning.
And third and whatever it was, and he throws the 30-yarder was it to Cooper? No, it was Elijah Moore.
Yeah.
And right over the fingertips of Darrell Baker. And then there was a couple more big plays.
That was a heck of a pass.
It was a great throw.
It was right over his fingertips.
It was.
Right in the window
But stop it. Stop a play, which we've said many times, and then it's not in the official's hands or your untrustworthy DB at the end. So yeah, it was. We were talking about plays that go against you, plays that go for you. I go back to the Baltimore game. I think it was in overtime with E.J. Speed on a fourth down play, and I still say he hooked the guy.
He did.
Which should have been a penalty, and then they're
Face
almost
mask.
Automatically in Justin Tucker's range. Mm-hmm. It evens out. It just doesn't feel like that.
No.
When Cleveland is so fresh in your mind.
Yeah, in the heat of the moment, there's no way that the fan will feel that it's just that justice has been served. But like you said, over the course of the season, there's stuff that goes back and forth.
It will even out. It won't feel like it, but it will even out.
So Jim Irsay tweets late on Tuesday that
because he always does.
Because he always loves to add a wrinkle to my Wednesday. Tweeted late on Tuesday night that the NFL acknowledged that the officials got it wrong. Quote, the NFL admits and understands they did not make the correct calls at the end of Sunday's Colts-Browns game, period. I believe we need to institute instant replay for all calls, including penalties, in the last 2 minutes of all games, end quote.
So all games would last like 30 minutes in the last 2 minutes.
Which let's start with that. Like, does it sound cool in theory to get things right? Sure. Is it something the NFL would seriously consider, Mike, from your knowledge of how they have done their business in the past?
No, they had this. Didn't this come up several years ago with when the Saints got hosed
by the Rams?
And I think then
in the NFC Championship game, a game with far more implications than a Week 7 game between the Colts and the Browns.
And they did, if I'm not mistaken, they did alter the rules briefly to where they reviewed 1 year or in the play. Was it 1 year or the play? Okay.
1 year. Yeah.
And then they got away from it because you can't.
Because they never overturned any pass interference call. They never did.
Right. So, no, it's a great idea, but it's never going to happen. And just so from some context, what Irsay tweeted out is not that they reviewed those two specific coverage penalties. He didn't. He said there were some calls they didn't make correctly at the end. So I've been told that it was one of the coverage penalties, the first one.
The illegal contact,
which
was
the big one. Which was the big one, because it's game over.
Right.
I tell you,
of course, I guess they're both big because the other one puts it
the
at
first
the line.
one's bigger still.
But the first one ends the game.
One. Yes.
And in an ideal world, with the commissioner having unfettered power, step in and say, we're going to take away the penalty. It's a strip sack and DeForest Buckner with a clear recovery. Game over. Well, you can't do that.
Right.
But that was the one that the league said should not have been called. And go back and look if you've got Game Pass, and if you do the All-22 where it shows you from the back the wide field, and the reason, and this is the reason they're not going to do this, is the reason that the NFL said that it should have been a penalty is because a split second before contact on Baker and Cooper, speed hits the quarterback and the ball comes out, which negated the contact penalty.
Right.
But I'm saying you got to look at it, and it is a hair earlier. So you're not going to do that. And the end zone penalty, they didn't believe that it was uncatchable, which is ridiculous.
Maybe it's
absurd.
I said it was catchable for Minute Bowl, if everyone understands that
maybe.
reference.
Yes, or Victor or whatever his name is.
There you go.
But the other one, and if you look close, and you need to look at it, is on the touchdown, on the fourth down touchdown. Zaire Franklin got tackled by 66. I think was he the left tackle or left guard, and he couldn't get into the play. And if you remember the play, it came within inches of Buck making the play himself. If Zaire's in there, they probably stop the play.
Right.
Probably. So, but for all we've said, you can't institute replay first because there's always going to be, controversy over it. But then the length of the game would go incredibly long. What do you give teams 3? Irsay didn't. He didn't want a limit of replay options. He wanted plays to be reviewed, all of them.
Right.
Well, you can't do that.
No. I think that, there's some sports. Soccer has instituted VAR over the past couple years, and it has not significantly slowed down the game, although some would say soccer's a slow game anyway. It has not always been perfect either, as we saw this year. If anyone out there is a fan of the English Premier League, there was a horrendous call in a Liverpool game that took a goal or a win away from. I forget exactly what it was, but it's not a perfect system, but it has solidified consistency in the system at least. So So people look around at other sports. They see tennis has automatic, line judging and where the ball lands. You can see a replay in half a second, after a player challenges, and they say, why can't the NFL figure it out? The NFL, like there's so much going on the field. I think, Chap, like the holding call on Zaire Franklin, like for example, that's one small play between two players of the 22 that are on the field. In order to be able to adequately review plays for replay review, everything that goes on in one play and every good or bad thing
everybody's
that happens,
bunched in.
It takes a long time, or it takes a lot of manpower to be able to do that, to watch everything that happens and to replay it. And challenges in the last 2 minutes, or replay reviews, are all done from the booth. Coaches don't challenge in the last 2 minutes of half. So this specific time that Irsay's talking about, if you want to review a play, some ones, like the EJ Speed play, is obvious. Like that's something that it's a turnover play or whatever, so you can review, quote unquote, that penalty and when exactly it occurred. But other plays, like the Zaire Franklin being tackled play, probably wouldn't have done a lick of good even if the rule was different in some aspect. So in order to make a perfect system, it's a very difficult to do. So you have to live with some kind of problems that you just do. And it's hard to hear that. It's frustrating to hear that, especially in a week like this where what happened to the Colts happened, and a play that really should have been called in their favor, it ends up costing them the game at the end of things. So I understand people's frustrations to see that other sports have gone a long way in taking steps forward and making things more perfect or better.
I still watch baseball, and they've got that superimposed strike zone,
right?
And the ump is still calling strikes that are
exactly
3 inches outside.
Yeah. Angel Hernandez is still up there showing himself
to the target. It's a strike.
Yeah, the worst umpire in professional sports. So anyway. All that to say, like I get it, and at the same time, it's not going to change because the NFL is A, resistant to change, and B, if what happened in that Rams-Saints game in the 2018 NFC Championship,
if that doesn't make them
did not change the rule, then this isn't going to change the rule. This is not going to be the straw that broke the camel's back. This is not going to be the impetus to major offseason changes to replay. And it's just not. I'm sorry to say that to Colts fans who want otherwise, but we're not here to tell you what you want to hear. We're here to tell you what's going on.
Well, and part of the frustration as well in the short term, the Colts fans say, well, we should be 4-3 instead of 3-4. That's a big difference right now.
It is, very much.
Because if you look right now, that 4-3 makes you tied for 7th, the last spot. 3-4, you're like 11th. Now, I realize you've got half the season to go.
Yeah.
But that at the end of the season, they're going to add up, and you're going to say, gosh, if we had that one game back. But like I said, Baltimore
game, exactly. Then you're back where
you're
you started.
back where you were. So I understand that. It's kind of what's, and people don't want to hear it, it's kind of what's cool about the NFL. Because there's stuff to talk about all week.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's not who you're playing next Sunday. But we talked to a lot of players in the locker room yesterday. Well, the league said, basically they screwed you.
Yeah.
And Zaire Franklin said, they're not going to take the L away.
Nope.
So as much as the players stew on it, what you cannot do, whatever the situation is, you can't lose that game twice. You can't let Cleveland beat you and then beat you against the Saints because you're worrying about what happened last week. So you do have to move on.
On that note, I've heard this said before, and I thought this was a beautiful description of the NFL on what makes it different than some other sports leagues on its interest in the public. The NFL is more than just a sports league that is going and playing through its games. It is basically like a television show. Because it has a season, it's the fall season. A new season of the NFL is here. Like there's a new season of, 24 or Stranger Things or The Friends or any one of those. And each week has an episode. And the biggest fans of the show all gather together to watch the episode. And then you can break down what happened in that episode, in that game, throughout the next week. And all the things that are unique about it, all the things that you liked, all the things that you didn't like, all the twists and turns in the plots. And then another week comes by, and boom, there's another episode to talk about. Like the NFL is essentially a television program, and that I think separates it from other leagues that have games that are more often. There's not enough time to sit and stew on one episode before you get to the next one, or there's too many games. I use too many in quotes here to really be able to put so much emphasis on one specific episode, one specific game.
But the fact there's 17 episodes is what makes it so different, because every episode means something.
Right.
Again, I've always said in baseball, go on a 7-game losing streak, we'll make it for that in June.
Right.
Lose 7 in a row here and you're done. Lose 3 in a row here.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's tough. Mm-hmm. So that's why, again, it's such a unique, and that's why it's so crazily popular. That's why people watch the Pro Bowl, for crying out loud, because people can't get enough. So it's unfortunate. Hopefully this team moves on quickly. I think Steichen's the kind of guy that, hey guys, move on, please move on. That's kind of what the message we got in the locker room, which he gave us before we went in the locker room. So
I gave him this nice crafted question about Jim Irsay's tweet, and he said, "Yeah, we just got to move on."
Boy, he dismissed you so quick.
Me. Yeah, he threw my question right out the window this week, saying, "Yeah, we got to move on to New Orleans."
Your question was 3 times as long as the answer.
It was 100%, but he's just like, I think you guys know what we feel about that. We got to move on to New Orleans, and that was about all he said. As for Jim Irsay, he might see a fine from the NFL, because you just can't question officials. They have very strict rules about that. And that's a note about what Jim Irsay said, like about the back and forth between a team in the NFL when it comes to penalties, Mike. That's very normal. It happens every week.
Joel Erickson was saying that you can send in 10 plays.
Right. To see exactly what the call is and get clarity from the NFL so you can coach your players better.
Not to share.
No, it's not to share with us, with the media, although I enjoy getting it shared with us. But it is incredibly abnormal for an owner of an NFL team to get that report back and then send out the results, which he shouldn't be doing.
We've had occasion, I remember Frank Reich would do it, where they'd turn in plays, a controversial play, and he wouldn't tell us that the NFL affirmed what the Colts believed, but he gave you that idea. So and that's fine, but not to come out and say we got
the word back from the league.
They admitted they made mistakes.
No,
those are words you're not supposed to share.
No, those were not words in Frank's lexicon when he was speaking with us about that thing. Let's see here. Matt actually gave us some more specific stats about challenging pass interference calls. There were, you say, 13 of the 81 challenges. That was it. That were successful pass interference.
About 16%.
Okay, I said none, but yeah, it was
still exceedingly rare. And the problem is it's a subjective judgment call. Like, you can say that about any call, but when you're talking about, a ball hitting the turf or a guy being out of bounds or possessing the ball, it's become a little more difficult than it should be on that end. But those are pretty objective things. The guy was in or he was out. He caught the ball or he didn't. With pass interference,
there's so much contact in the secondary sometimes and jostling that they let go and let the players play the game. It's like holding that you would call holding on every single play in the NFL, in the trenches, if it was just strict to the letter of the law.
Right, and typically they call the ones that they can say, that impeded the player, we saw the jersey tug, we saw the grab, and still they even miss those sometimes.
You still see jersey grabs and nothing.
Right.
But one of the things that just angered the fans, it just kept things building, was Kenny Moore's almost interception.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I could have argued that he made the interception.
You could have argued that, yes.
I didn't see the ball move. It touched the ground, yes, and then DeForest Buckner's almost. Mm-hmm. That ball moved.
Yes, very much so.
But that just gives more fuel. Like, see what they did to us?
Yeah,
They didn't do it to you, but I would argue Kenny had an interception, not Buck.
I would save those 2 plays as well. I thought Buckner's, for sure. That ball moved. I don't think he really ever controlled it. It was just unfortunate that they called it that way on the field and got an overturn. Kenny Moore's, I thought he had his hand under that ball. Yes, it hit the turf, but they kind of clarified that. You're allowed to do that as long as it didn't help him catch the ball, which in this case, I don't think that it did. I thought that one should have stood.
Yeah, the ruling there was interception, right, originally, and then they overturned it, which, like, as I was looking at the play, as I saw it, and I saw Kenny have it and hit the ground, my perspective was I didn't think he quite had possession of it, so I think if I just saw it in a vacuum, I would have called it incomplete. But after the ruling on the field was a completed pass, you go back and look at it, and you need overwhelming evidence to overturn it. I didn't think there was incontrovertible evidence to overturn it. Yeah. Like I said, I thought he didn't quite have possession when it hit the ground, but he could have had possession when it hit the ground. I think he just looked like he got a little bit tighter with the ball in his body after it hit the ground, but he could have had it right there in his arm before he hit the ground. So, but it's done now. It's done. It's finished.
All done.
It's over.
Finished.
It's frustrating. It's annoying.
But nothing irritates someone who feels they're wronged to say, get over it.
Exactly.
I mean, there have been times I've wanted to mention that to my better half, and I know better. You don't say get over it, because then she'll hit you with something.
Yes, something that will make you not say it again.
Leave a mark.
Exactly. Oh, there was another part to Jim Irsay's tweet, by the way.
Oh, yeah, the one that's sort of more important
the actual
long term.
Part.
Crucial NFL news, urgent NFL news, as he said at the beginning of his tweet. Let's see here. Irsay said Anthony Richardson's shoulder surgery in Los Angeles was a success. Quote, it was a long procedure, and his shoulder injury has been repaired. No new surprises were found during surgery. They just repaired what was expected. Anthony is doing well, and thanks everyone for the support. Parentheses, there is presently no date for his return. End parentheses.
And then he went on to the official thing.
But
we've beaten that one up for a while.
Exactly. So you kind of covered up the lead there, Jim did himself, by throwing, oh, yeah, and this. But
Mike and I were talking pre-show, too, and if you viewed Twitter in a certain way, you didn't actually see that second part of the tweet until you hit read more. Right. So you could have sort of just scrolled over that and moved past it. That
would have been nice if everyone in the newsroom had just scrolled past it to me, so I wouldn't have had to be in every single show.
Maybe the NFL didn't, see the extended
exactly.
tweets,
Yeah, maybe they didn't. Maybe that fine isn't coming. Maybe they just oh cool, Anthony Richardson. Yeah, his shoulder. Good job, Jim. Good tweet there. But yeah, that's. No significant news there. We knew the surgery was coming. He got it. It was out in L.A. by apparently the same doctor who did the Aaron Rodgers Achilles.
And he had worked on Kobe Bryant previously.
Kobe Bryant, so he's worked on multiple famous athletes before, major surgeries before, and yeah. So
I think I've seen the approximate rehab is 6 months, roughly. So that'll take us to
April,
which is OTA, or which is the start of the offseason program. And I'm sure at some point, and whenever we went through this with Andrew Luck, when you start throwing. So the timeline is good, and there should be no, you hope no setbacks or whatever. So he should be good to go. And I think what's important we've talked about is it was only 4 starts and 173 snaps. We've seen what the future can be and should be. So I think you're very, very encouraged by that. And now you just have to take care of the team around him, get better pieces around him, so when he's back playing, they're good to go. But we've seen enough that he is the future, and I think you feel safe and comfortable with that.
The biggest thing is keeping him safe and keeping him comfortable now. And it's a question that was posed to Shane Steichen. I think it was last week. I forget who did it. I wish I remembered so I could credit him. But asked him, hey, in the future, do you have to change up the offense? Because, heck, he finished – one game that he started?
One of his 4 starts.
One of his 4 starts, and then he missed another game in there too.
Concussion.
Because he kept getting banged up. So do you have to change up the offense? And Shane said, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, which to be fair.
You know what he meant. No.
Yeah. Like, it's also the right response at the time, even if you would consider it. Even if you would consider it. Like, we've got games to win now. We'll worry about that next year. But that I was going to pose that to you, thinking that was going to be the answer, Chap. That this is a quarterback that you drafted with the specific mindset idea that he was a unicorn in terms of NFL quarterbacks and had this extra ability. You can't just take that ability away because it hinders what you think he can be for the franchise.
You certainly you evaluate everything, and there are things you can do to limit the risk. But this is who you drafted. If you wanted a pocket guy, draft a pocket guy.
Right.
Draft, Levis, whomever, whatever, however you look at it. So
who's going to start this weekend? Will Levis, the debut of. We will see.
They're going to play both quarterbacks.
They are. That's what they say.
And if you've got 2 quarterbacks, you got no quarterbacks.
0 quarterbacks. Yeah.
So, but boy, we get off target. So you just.
I'm sorry. I throw in my little.
But the thing is, no, this is who he is. But again, and we've beaten this to death. You can limit the risk. You can have him run through the end zone on his touchdown where he got lit up, or teaching like Tua to fall ninja style to where you don't hit your head, which is stupid. But, he got hurt on a football play that was sort of, I don't say a fluke, but you see guys get tackled on their shoulders all the time and they get up and they go back to the huddle. This one, it just didn't happen. This is who he is, but there are things you can do. To think they're not going to call design runs is ridiculous. That's who he is. So, sort of limit the risks, but you play and you just, I don't say keep your fingers crossed, but that's part of what this game is.
So far under Shane Steichen, the Colts have been the only team in the NFL, Matt notices here, to score 20 points or more in every game this season.
Surprises me.
It does surprise me, yeah.
Very surprising statistic.
Mm-hmm. And that's pretty. There was a time last year where the Colts defense was the only defense not to give up 30 points in a game, and then they went to Dallas.
That went to hell.
Yeah, exactly, down the stretch of the season. And I hesitated to bring that stat up, but I knew it would elicit a chuckle, so for my own edification.
33, was it 33 and a quarter?
Yeah, something like that.
And then 39 and a half.
Yeah, the Dallas game, it was the most imperfect fourth quarter you could ever have. Like, it was touchdown on every one of their drives, and your offense gave up turnovers that became touchdowns. It was boy, it was something. But anyway, all that to say,
another rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. They've scored 20 points in every game this season, and big plays have been a big reason why. They have 33 big plays, quote unquote, using the ESPN.com metric of plays that go 20 yards or more. That's 27 passes and 7 runs. And for comparison, 33 big plays this year through 7 games. So you're on pace for what? Something around 70-ish, maybe a few more. They had only 50 such plays last year. And honestly, I'm surprised they had that many. I was
expecting there to be a greater wow.
Well, one was a 39-yard scramble by Matt Ryan.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah, some of those big plays, quote unquote, just got completely lost in the shuffle because they went 3 and out immediately after.
I thought I noticed too on these the longest, I believe, the longest reception in the league this year, I think, is Michael Pittman.
The 75-yarder that he got this week?
I think it seems like it's not right, but I thought I saw on NFL.com that his is the longest reception.
All right, there we go. And Pittman also is kind of in a little bit of hot water this week. Since you bring him up, we'll divert there. He spoke with Indy Star's Nate Atkins after the game and was none too happy at the time about his role with the team, saying something to the effect of, "Well, maybe they just don't think I'm important in the offense," or something like that. And Pitt, to his credit, stepped in front of us on Wednesday and he rolled back everything he said and was like, "I spoke in frustration. That's who I am." I'm a sore loser. I've always been a sore loser. I've been working on that. Right. And
the timing was just wrong.
It is. Pittman is like this in the locker room. He is sulky because he hates losing. He freaking hates it. And you would rather have that than the other side of the coin in your locker room for sure. But he got caught at a bad time. He was frustrated about losing, even though he just had a 75-yard touchdown and he had 5 targets in this game where there were only 27 throws or something like that. So he had 1/5 of the share, so 20% of the target share, which is pretty good.
And by the way, he's got 65 on the year, which is 18 more than Josh Downs.
And Josh Downs had himself a very nice day. 5 catches, 125 yards and a touchdown. Pierce had a couple catches, and that's what Pittman came, as he said this week when he spoke to us on Wednesday, rolling everything back, saying that he loves Indianapolis and being here and is very happy for the other guys and their roles. So he said all the right things afterward after he got the cooling off period. But there is a certain cooling off period, Mike, as you know, for us in the media to head into the locker room after the game.
It's like 10 or 15 minutes.
Exactly. And for Pittman, for him to be where he would ideally want to be, I think, he might need a 30 or 45 minute cooling off period.
And he said that. He said, if I'd had 30 minutes, I probably would have calmed down.
Right. But that's some of one of the great things about the NFL that generates more interest is you get players that still are, they have a little bit of time to separate themselves from it, but are still very much in the heat of the moment.
But they have to talk.
Yes.
Who was it? The team that lost in the WNBA? They didn't make their players.
New York, Connecticut? Yeah, it was New York, the Liberty.
They only made a player or two available.
I thought they didn't make any players available after they lost the WNBA
finals.
And
then I think was it Utah? In college?
It was
USC.
Losing to
Utah, and he made no players available.
Yeah, maybe the Liberty did have 1 or 2. Excuse me. I was thinking about that USC game.
You just can't do that. It's yes, you need a cooling off period. If that's the case, then go in a room and sit
and scream,
hit the wall, and then come in and say, okay, what do you guys want?
Yep.
But that's part of what again makes the NFL what it is these guys have to be accountable. There were times back in the Peyton years when things would go wrong, not very often, but when they did, certain players would not stand up and answer for it. Mm-hmm. And Peyton one time said, he said, there's other guys in here need to be accountable for their actions. And I can think of a couple of guys, I won't mention them. But it's part of what it's why I appreciate, I've talked about this, Zaire Franklin every Wednesday. He comes there and he'll talk for 15 minutes, and he is very thoughtful. He thinks about it because it's part of his responsibility as a captain, as sort of the captain and the voice of the defense. And this is your job. And I realize nobody shows up for our job and asks us questions after you do a broadcast or I do a story, but it's different. And these guys need to talk, and Pitt's a guy that could use longer than a 15-minute cool-off period.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, to take us all the way back to our big plays and Colts offense discussion, that Josh Downs actually leads the team in big plays with 7 of them, and he had a couple of them last week. He's turning into a heck of a player. I mean, we
see him growing.
Yeah, like we said in the offseason, I said after the draft that I loved their pick of Josh Downs, and you were too. I think Chapp was on board too, although we're not on the same level of draft coverage and knowledge of college players. But like Josh Downs has been, Matt, I think everything you could have hoped for a Colts fan here halfway through this first season.
Oh, I've just loved every minute that I've seen him play. He makes things look easy sometimes, and I haven't really recalled a guy that we've had in the last couple of years that has done that. Just being able to, find some space, get the ball and run. And I love the guy. He was a great pick and just a nice safety valve for any quarterback who's out there.
We talked to Reggie last week, I think it was, or the week before, when the air was going up, and it was brought up to him again, and he expanded how, remember at the Combine, he says, I get super duper excited when the receivers are out there. His eye was on Downs from the get-go.
Right.
And he went, when they were done, he went over to Bauer, and he said, we said the same thing. This guy is special. Now, special in what they needed him to be. They needed a guy to take Paris Campbell's role, which Paris, for a lot of reasons, never really thrived or emerged in that role. But the stats that are cool is that he is the most receptions in the first 7 games in franchise history, 33, and the yardage, I believe, is second. And this franchise has had more than a few really, really good receivers.
Some pretty good ones over the years. Some pretty good ones, yeah. So, Matt also notes here that the Colts are tied for 6th in the NFL in points per game, 25.7, tied with the reigning Super Bowl champion, Kansas City Chiefs.
That surprises me.
It does, me too.
It just does. And the fact that they're top 10 in most offensive categories, and we can get to it in a little bit, but they've not scratched the surface with Jonathan Taylor. I mean, holy smokes, they've done all this with him being just sort of eased in. This last game we saw JT at what he can be. And I think we're going to see maybe starting this week that he gets, it's not 18 carries apiece for he and Zach Moss. It's got to be. You paid JT $26 million guaranteed for a reason.
Now it's more 25 to 10.
Don't you think?
That range. I got to think that's what they're going to.
And again, we're not
respect to Zach Moss.
We're not piling on this guy. He's second in the league in rushing.
Right.
Missing a game. But JT, the way they use him 3 times out of the Wildcat, the big catch against Jacksonville, he split out and he runs it shallow. They can do so much, and they haven't. Steichen's had him on the field for like a month to do things. This is what we can do. You can see JT's eyes light up when he says, what he can do with, he says us, but it was sort of like me. What they can do with us in his offense is really exciting. We haven't begun to see what they can do with JT yet.
That brings us to this week's opponent as the Colts take on the New Orleans Saints. Both teams 3-4 on the year. They've lost back-to-back games, including both teams have lost to Jacksonville during that time. Both teams are 3rd in the Southern Division of their respective conference. Matt pointing out all these striking similarities between these two teams. And, of course, the most infamous Colts-Saints game we don't need to talk about too much, but we're just focusing on this year. As, let's see, the game will be...
Was it 60... Is that the one you're talking about?
Oh, my God. No, I mean, I was talking about the Super Bowl.
Oh, well, that one too.
The most significant Colts-Saints game.
Yeah, the onside, the Hank Basket game. Okay, yeah.
But the last two Colts-Saints ones that come to mind, I think, will be that one, the 62-7 game. That was in, 2011 when things were spiraling completely out of control. And
they could have scored 90.
Yeah, and then a couple years ago when Drew Brees couldn't miss and was, I believe, setting NFL records in that game for, was it touchdown passes or was it yards? He set some NFL record.
He set a couple of them that day.
Yeah, exactly. He probably set a bunch. And I forget how many passes he threw and completed, but he threw everything but one. One hit the ground. That was it. And it was like late in the game where he finally set one that hit with the ground. That was at the end of I think that might have been the 2019 season when things were like when they had that great start to the year. And then Jacoby Brissett got hurt in Pittsburgh, and then things did not go as well afterward. I think it was during that year, and Kenny Moore got hurt at the end of the year, and the defense was not nearly the same without him. I think that was the year that happened. But all that to say, it's a far different Saints team now than then, although they still have some players. But Drew Brees gone, Derek Carr in there, and in a weird twist of fate, Chap, the Colts have now played Derek Carr 6 seasons in a row, every year since 2018. What a weird stat to play one quarterback that many years in a row in the regular season.
They went through that stretch with Brady in New England.
Yes.
Where they played just because of the way the schedule formula, and it's not the league isn't doing this. It's the schedule is set.
Right.
It depends on a lot of on how you finish your division, but yeah. It was pointed out to Shaq that he's played against Carr every time, every year. Mm-hmm. So, and one of them didn't work out well, where Shaq was kind of frozen on a blitz, and he completed it. I don't know who was it, the Renfro, whoever it was.
2021, yes, the infamous 2021
season.
So,
but yeah,
this is one win, couldn't do it.
I keep in my head. I mentioned somebody in the press room. I've got to keep remembering that this is the Saints and not the Raiders, because I'm always used to Carr with the Raiders. I'm thinking, what are they going to do against Devontae Adams? Nothing.
Well, they do have a couple pretty good receivers.
Yes, they do.
Chris Olave is a really good player. Michael Thomas, really good player. Alvin Kamara, really good player. He can do a lot of different things. Taysom Hill is the ultimate gadget guy, if we want to use that term, even though some players do not like that term. He fits the bill 100% because he has even more gadgets than your typical gadget guy. Quarterback, tight end, running back, wide receiver. They'll line him up anywhere.
And what that does, it makes you spend time during the week on him.
Right.
Maybe Gus Bradley mentioned this, maybe it's 3 or 4 plays. You better be on point on 3 or 4 plays or he's going to hurt you.
Mm-hmm. So scoring this year, we said the Colts are 6th in the NFL in scoring. The Saints are 21st, only scoring 19 points a game so far. So in spite of all those offensive weapons they have, really haven't figured out how to make everything click just yet. Passing yards, they're 12th in the league. Colts are 10th. Rushing yards, they're 22nd down. They're less than 100 yards per game, only 3.5 yards per rush.
With Alvin Kamara.
Alvin Kamara was also suspended for a couple games, for 3 games. So yeah, he's been back for a couple games now too. The Colts are 9th in the league in rushing, 224 yards per game. Their defense has been playing pretty well this year, the Saints. They're 7th in the league in points allowed with 18 points per game. The Colts are down at 30th. They're allowing 27 points per game. So statistically speaking, one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Total defensive yards, the Saints are 4th, only averaging less than 300 yards given up per game. Colts down 22nd. They're allowing 350 yards per game. Pass defense is their strength for sure, allowing an average of less than 200 yards per game, and it's been something like 17 games, or maybe I forget exactly how many. They haven't given up more than 275 yards passing, but it's a lot. It's a long time. And in today's NFL, you see 300-yard games sprinkled in that.
Routine. It's routine.
Very much so. This isn't the early Peyton Manning years when Peyton was the aberration, throwing for 300 yards a week, and like this happens everywhere. Like Gardner Minshew's throwing for 300 yards in back-to-back weeks, for crying out loud. So this is much more normal in the NFL now. Rushing defense, the Saints are 12th in the league, allowing less than 100 yards per game. Colts are down to 21st in the league, allowing 118 yards per game. Let's see. Turnovers, Saints are +3 on the year, and -2 are the Colts in turnover margin. That number for the Colts
they have done some major damage to that in the last couple weeks.
Nosedived in a bad way.
4 in back-to-back games will get you beat.
Yeah. You were bringing up the stat about 4 when you have 4 turnovers in a game to Shane Steichen, asking if he ever remembers a game that he's won. He couldn't think of one off the top of his head, Chap, because those are just so rare. If you have 4 turnovers and you're still able to win a game.
He said, I think I had one last year and I didn't win it. He's 0-6 from the Chargers on up when his teams, and this is with quarterbacks, with proven quarterbacks. I'm writing about this today. The Colts are 5-55 since 1984 with 4 turnovers. Since 2020, the league is 7-82. And since you guys don't have access to computers to where you can look it up, the Colts have won 5 games since 1984. Do you know who the quarterbacks were?
Peyton Manning.
1.
Peyton Manning. Oh, I mean,
3 quarterbacks have done it.
Oh, okay.
Peyton did it twice.
Andrew Luck.
Twice. No. Manning did it once.
Okay, Manning
Luck
did
twice,
once.
Manning once. You're not going to get the other one. You just won't get the other one. He did it twice.
I was going to say Charlie Whitehurst. Just to pull
Paul Justin.
Right out of the hat.
Don Majkowski.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
In 1994. So it's all the years that Manning, they had some games where they had turnovers. It takes an elite quarterback, and they should.
Or Don Majkowski.
And they should have done it last. They should have done it last week.
Yes.
So, but we talked. Minshew can't be the problem. He's been the problem the last 2 weeks. He cannot turn the ball over like that.
Let's take a look at the Saints offense a little bit more under the microscope. Derek Carr this year has thrown for 1,600 yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, sacked 18 times. He is not on the injury report for the first time since suffering a shoulder injury in Week 3.
Sprained AC joint.
Yep, which is the same injury but it's not the same.
Right,
So,
not the same level, I guess.
Right, exactly. You get a level 1 sprained AC joint, and well, you play through that. You get a level 3 sprained AC joint and surgery, and as Anthony Richardson will tell you, the season's over. Jameis Winston appeared in 3 games, played a lot of time. He's been there for a while now. Winston has, after coming over from the Bucs, and he's been the backup there for Drew Brees, and now the backup there for Derek Carr. So he's very familiar with the things that they do in that offense, and even in that last year with the Buccaneers, he's proven that he's a productive quarterback in the NFL. He threw for that year must have been like 38 touchdowns and 35 interceptions is what it felt like, at least. I don't remember exactly how many it was, but that was the like Jameis Winston. I knew him from covering him at Florida State. Him paired with Bruce Arians was a disaster waiting to happen, because Bruce Arians was just sling it, let it go and see what happens, and that's not what Jameis needs, because he needs more structure and able to be
he's a 30-30 guy.
Yeah, the 30-30 is not good in the NFL.
He may be the only one.
He might be. I think he was, if I remember.
Because it reminded me back in my day of Wilbur Wood with the White Sox. He won 20 and lost 20 in a season as a knuckleballer.
Yeah. All that to say, Jameis Winston, the backup quarterback, we probably won't even see. But here I am, spending 5 minutes on it here on the Colts Blue Zone podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Colts Blue Zone for news and notes throughout the week. Hopefully things more relevant than talking about the backup quarterback from the Saints. We have injury notes from the team as they go onto the field. Nothing was abnormal, I think, this week. Kylan Granson's still dealing with concussion symptoms.
You would say he's not. You would expect him not to play. I was surprised he wasn't practicing yesterday.
Right. So I think it depends on what happens today. And I don't know if he's out there. We can maybe check out, see if anyone's tweeting about it.
Okay, Nate Atkins, Zach Moss is back at practice. Out today was Braden Smith with the
still
hip
out.
wrist.
Man, he's Braden.
Kylan Granson, Juju Brents, of course,
Naturally.
Eric Johnson. Juju's got the quad.
I don't know how bad that. It looked bad when it happened.
So
really bad.
To me, my inkling, the way reading what I read from the Colts about maybe moving Kenny Moore outside and thinking about that sounds to me like it's going to be a longer injury.
Longer term.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, longer injury.
I won't be surprised still, and they make a lot of these moves on Saturday, if Eric Johnson with the ankle and Juju with the quad go on IR.
Right.
It's 4 weeks. I could see that happening. And I'll write about it tomorrow, and we've talked about the loss of Juju Brents is just it's going to be tough to overcome. Mm-hmm. He was still growing as a player, but the position is just bereft of experienced bodies.
And I know that the first and the obvious, quote-unquote, obvious solution is to move Kenny Moore outside. Let me tell you, I think that's a bad idea.
I asked Gus about that.
I really think that's a bad idea.
And he basically said it's a bad idea. He said we've talked about it.
Yeah.
But they value him too much as a nickel.
As they should.
Correct.
As they should. Did you see what he did last
year? Look what he did in that Cleveland game.
Exactly.
He was tremendous.
He had a really good game.
This is similar to, if you put, last year, if you put Quentin at left tackle.
There you go.
No. Would he do okay? Yes, he would. But then you're taking away a player from what he does. So no, they'll leave him out there. Then maybe what you try to do is stay in your base more, and then he's outside, because if they open in base, he's outside. But so much, I don't know, 60%, which is a conservative.
Yeah.
You're a nickel. You're out there a lot, so he needs to be in slot.
Yeah, if you're putting your best players on the field now, base would be that, to have Shaq Leonard, EJ Speed, and Zaire Franklin all out there, along with Kenny Moore and whoever the heck is on the other side at that point. Jalen Jones,
I assume,
by process of elimination. So, but
that's a bad way to do a lineup.
I know, and I feel bad for Jalen, like for guys who are. I feel bad is maybe not the right term, because they're getting paid quite a bit of money. But like I respect the challenge that Jalen Jones has been thrust into. Guys like him, guys like Blake Freeland, who's throwing in, like, who's starting on both sides of the offensive line, at left tackle, at right tackle.
Help block Myles Garrett.
Yeah, go ahead.
From the end zone.
Yeah, try it by yourself. Go ahead. Boom. And that's just you see Matt shudder over there. It's going to give Colts fans nightmares for the rest of this season based on what he did there. Like that's not something that your rookie 4th round pick should be asked to do, but you're thrown into a position where it's something you have to do.
I don't want to relitigate the game, but
here we go.
That sack fumble that really turned the game around was probably one of the few times this season where I've really just been disappointed in kind of the situational awareness of the coaching staff, because they ran 2 back-to-back pass plays when they didn't need to right there.
Right.
And that led directly to that turnover. And then they had Garrett, with the tight end, and I know they had Freeland, but then you had your quarterback in the end zone, and it just was a rough time.
Shane even mentioned that was a double move.
Yep.
They thought they had Alec Pierce on double move from your end zone.
Yeah.
With Myles Garrett. No, that, and he sort of admitted that. And keep in mind, this is a guy who is a seasoned coordinator, but first time head coach. You got a lot of stuff going on.
Like he's called plays before, like you called plays in Philadelphia for a couple of years. Like that's. Like, I hesitate to use the term rookie mistake, because I think that's oversimplifying what was going through his head. But it was a mistake to kind of go in that direction.
Too aggressive for the time.
Yes.
And other than that, I mean, I think Steichen, like I said, the reason I put in the big play stuff and the point stuff was we have definitely seen a schematic advantage from the Colts this year.
Yes.
It's definitely different from what we saw last year.
Right.
Definitely a plus to have that guy in the team's corner.
Yeah.
But he's not perfect, because nobody is.
That's the thing. Overall, a lot of positives. Like it doesn't mean that we can't talk about the negatives too, and we shouldn't, because that's our job here, to bring out the good things and the bad things, and so people watching the games can understand it more fully and more appreciate, I guess, what's going on. So to continue our discussion with the Saints offense, Alvin Kamara, 69 carries, 261 yards on the year, 39 receptions as well, 177 yards. They'll get him the ball as often as they possibly can. He did miss Wednesday's practice with an illness, but I'd bet that he's going to be back unless
39 for 177.
Yeah, that's
he kind of goes out, does that little stop in the middle and gets you 5 yards.
Exactly. That sometimes all you need is 5 yards. And speaking of only 5 yards, Jack Doyle was back to pound the anvil last week. He still looks like I tweeted out, he still looks like he can get you 8 yards on 37.
7.9. Yep.
Darn right. All over and over again.
And I'll still say one of the all-time great stories from Colts, just because a guy that was driving home from Nashville, and because he was waived.
Yep.
And he gets 2 free agent contracts from the Colts because he earned them.
Yep, 2 free agent contracts for an undrafted free agent. Good for Jack. Cathedral pride.
And he's got by and large, he's got his health.
Yes, he does. He looked good.
And he's got a good family. So kudos to Jack.
He did it right at the end of the day. And he was tough, too. It's not like he was in a weak position where you're not banging your head against defensive linemen all the time. And as Frank
he was their best blocking tight end.
He was the underrated reason why that 2021 team was such a good running team, is because they had Jack Doyle as a good run blocker there to join with that offensive line, which was such a good run blocking offensive line. Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, Rashid Shaheed, combined for, 40, 50, 60, 70, 90, like 95 catches between them, and close to 1,000 yards for them, and 4 touchdowns, I think, between the trio of them at wide receiver. They have a good deep threat game between them as well. Derek Carr never one to be afraid to chuck it deep, and that matches kind of the skill set of some of these guys. Olave's a speedster, and I say that with no false intentions of. If anyone has followed the news this week, he got pulled over for going 70 miles per hour in a 35 mile per hour zone.
Who hasn't done that?
Yeah. So he, without speeding, cast the first stone here. I haven't gone quite that bad, I guess. Not in a 35 for sure. But anyway, speaking of Cathedral Fighting Irish, leading tackler for the Saints is Pete Werner, linebacker. Go Irish. 47 tackles for him this year. Former Ohio State standout as well. Demario Davis, another leading tackler at linebacker with 42 himself. Marshawn Lattimore just... year after year is one of the reasons why the Saints defense has been one of the best in terms of pass defense because it's tough to throw against him. It just is. He shuts down his receiver, his half of the field very well year after year. And I don't know how old he is now, but like every year, like you see other young cornerbacks, guys like as who come up like a Patrick Surtain, like a Sauce Gardner, and they're great players. Absolutely, they are. But you always see guys like a Marshawn Lattimore year after year in the Pro Bowl, in All-Pro consideration. There's something to be said for the consistency he has had down there, and has done it kind of out of the limelight a little bit of some of those the young guys who grabbed some attention early in their careers. And but there's no if you're analyzing what makes that defense work, Lattimore is certainly a big reason why. So they have that. They have Carl Granderson with 4.5 sacks, leads them. He also has 8 tackles for loss. So yeah, that's a brief rundown of the Saints defense. We've done their offense, injury reports for the Colts, so we kind of just ran that down a minute ago as well. And with Kylan Granson being out again on Thursday with a concussion, that's unlikely to see him on the field as well. Boy, the tight end, they've gone from a place of abundance to like who was it? Somebody, I think it was James Boyd, our friend at The Athletic, posted that since Gardner Minshew, his 3 games starting, tight ends have had only 6 catches in those 3 games. That if you had said that at the beginning of the season, with how much we were talking up the Colts tight end group, that in 3 games they would only have 6 catches. Had
a minus 6 yards.
Yes,
last week.
Yards
that's tough to do.
That's crazy. That this group that has the talent that it has, or the potential that it has, but if you keep getting people knocked out with injury, and Jelani Woods hasn't seen the field yet.
And then you've got Josh Downs going off. It is, and again, when you
you're right.
The blueprint going forward again is going to be fewer. It's going to be 25 passes.
Yeah.
Which you're going to be judicious how you do it. Josh Downs is going to get his.
Yep. Pittman's going to get his.
Pittman needs to get his, or he's going to, let you know about
again. Yeah.
So that's where, but still, they've got too much possibilities with the tight ends to not get something out of them.
The Saints injury report on Wednesday had 12 players appearing on it. I mentioned Alvin Kamara with the illness. Taysom Hill with the chest was on there as well, limited in practice. Tyrann Mathieu, the safety, was limited with a foot injury. Ryan Ramczyk, their starting right tackle, one of the highest paid right tackles in the NFL, had a concussion as well. Tight end Juwan Johnson there with a calf injury too. So that's their first injury report of the week. Like I said, you can follow us on Twitter at Colts Blue Zone for more injury news and more news and notes from this game throughout the week. 1 o'clock kickoff for the Colts airs in the central Indiana area on Fox 59. Hope you tune in for that. And also our Blue Zone pregame show over on CBS 4 at 11:30 Sunday morning. Live reports from Lucas Oil Stadium coming there. Let's get to our final score and predictions. I'm going to go first because I've let Chap go first the last 2 weeks, and I saw him just cover up his prediction.
I've got my score, and you're not going to be able to steal it.
You covered it up with your glasses case.
It's like I'm in a sophomore in high school. I don't want the guy next to me stealing my stuff.
Darn right. So, this has been a weird year. Like I just haven't been able to get a good handle on the Colts this year, and I've said that before this year.
Except Jacksonville.
Exactly. Except I know what's going to happen in Jacksonville, and it's very much unlike last year when I thought I knew what was happening with that team. It just felt like the wins and losses. It felt like I knew when they were coming, and this year I do not. I just don't. It's hard to put a handle on things. I don't think they're a great team, so they're going to lose more often than they win. But I'm going to pick that they win this week. I like them at home this week.
Because they're playing they win so many games at home now.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it one?
Yeah, just one game at home that they've won this year. But I don't know. Maybe I'm stupid, but I just feel like a win's coming this week.
Want a second opinion?
Yeah. No, because I know exactly what it's going to be. Don't need one. Unnecessary. I'm going with the final score of 24-21. The Colts get the victory, and they head into the next week. Who do they play next week? It's Carolina. That's right, the Carolina week with a win under their belts. Matt, what do you got?
Boy, I've not had a good season pick. Now, I did pick against them last week, but the way the game went was nowhere close to what any of us thought it was going to be. The field goal battle did not necessarily materialize. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Colts this week. I think that they do clean up some of the turnovers, kind of a caveat with that. I'm going to go 31-28 over the Saints.
Unsung hero of this last Colts-Browns game was the Browns kicker, though, Dustin Hopkins, who went out and hit three 50-yard field goals plus a 44-yard field goal. So
he set a league record, wasn't it? Was it 5 straight games with a 50-yard?
I believe I read that, yes.
Dustin, also a former Florida State Seminole.
Which says something about your offense.
It does.
As we talked about in the Baltimore game.
Yes.
And that's a couple things. If the Colts had done differently, they wouldn't have just handed them field goals in a couple of situations, and that's a completely different end of the game. But again, let's not relitigate.
All right, Mike Chappell, your turn.
I've got 27-20. Good guys. The 20, I had to start with 20 because that's what they're scoring,
exactly,
which is I still have a hard time believing. I think I don't trust the defense. I think the corners are a mess. Carr's going to have a good day, and he despite the sacks, he does get rid of the ball quick most of the time. But I trust that Steichen is going to find more and more ways to get JT involved and off, and I think they're going to find ways. I think they will. You can't keep turning the ball over. You just can't.
That's one way to keep Gardner Minshew from turning the ball over is give the ball to Jonathan Taylor.
True, and then if he fumbles, then it's on him. But I think I do like the way this offense is growing, and they've done all this again with their guy playing only 4 games, finishing only 1. So yeah, I think they win this, and again then we can get back. Boy, if you only come out of that Cleveland game, then look where you are. But take care of business. Because, doggone, Carolina hasn't won a game, and I thought New England was gosh awful until they
went and rolled
beat
the
Buffalo.
Panthers. Rolled the Bucks. Yeah.
So,
exactly.
but no, 27-20.
All right. So that's us for this Colts Blue Zone. We appreciate you listening. Please subscribe. Get us delivered to your podcast listening device as soon as it drops every week, usually on Thursday afternoons, whenever Matt gets to it, whenever he can pull himself away from the trials and travails of the digital media department here at Fox 59 CBS4. Read Mike Chappell's work online, fox59.com, CBS4Indy.com, over on our sports page there. You can follow us on Twitter, at DaveG_sports, at MChappell51, at Statomatty. We appreciate you listening, and we'll see you next week on the Colts Blue Zone Podcast.